Good evening, everyone. Oh, I wasn't expecting so much light. It's wonderful. Feel good about me right now. Okay. So, again, good evening and welcome to the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. That's when you clap. Yeah. My name is Jonathan. I'm the manager of youth and family programs here, and I just wanted to, on behalf of our board of trustees, our president and CEO, Neil Barclay, our vice president of learning engagement, Lance Wheeler, and the entire staff here at the Wright, welcome you all here for this amazing event on tonight. This is the, make sure I got my notes right, the 4th annual Black History Month lecture by the City of Detroit Office of Arts, Culture, and Entrepreneurship. Right? Let's talk about exciting, okay? Now, from what I understand, we've got some amazing, amazing talents coming up here. We're gonna have some amazingly powerful words from the dynamic Jamon Jordan. We are also gonna have the incomparable talents of the sensational Alvin Waddles. And with that kind of combination, you know that it's going to be a night that is ensured to deepen your resolve, elevate your consciousness, and encourage your actions. So I invite you all to embrace this ambiance of this amazing institution, embrace the ambiance of this amazing program on tonight, and make sure that you really feel it in your mind, your heart, and your soul, because that is what this month is all about, right? Celebrating the times that aren't getting celebrated enough, and carrying that forward, right? Yeah. So enjoy yourselves on tonight, and again, welcome to the Wright.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I'm sorry, this is Detroit on a Friday night. What up, though? What up, though? All right, my name is Lacey Holmes, and I am the project manager for arts initiatives for the City of Detroit's Office of Arts, Culture, and Entrepreneurship, or as we like to call ourselves, Detroit ACE. Thank you. Woo, arts and culture. And I am also here to welcome you tonight to the 4th annual Black History Month Historian Lecture. Our office houses the Detroit Poet Laureate, Jessica Care Moore. Thank you. Detroit's Composer Laureate, first Composer Laureate, Patrick Prouty. Patrick is here tonight. And the city's first ever historian, Jamon Jordan. If you just can't get enough of arts and culture, I invite you this Sunday to St. Peter and Paul Jesuit Church, where the Composer Laureate is hosting Concerts for Caring, a free jazz concert that will headline Vanessa Rubens that will benefit Detroit's unhoused population. So we hope to see you there at 3 p.m. on Sunday. It is a free concert. When I think about the arts, you think about fine arts, performance, and music and expression. And the arts is how we tell our stories. But history is our story. And for the past 4 years, Jamon Jordan has helped Detroit understand itself more deeply through public appearances, tours, classrooms, and community engagement, where he has done hundreds of them over the past 4 years, ensuring that the people, places, and voices that built this city are recognized and honored. Tonight is made even more special by the accompaniment of the renowned Detroit pianist, Alvin Waddles. An incredible pianist and music director whose work spans jazz, gospel, and theater. His work has been heard in Detroit and across the globe. And tonight he is joining us to bring music and history and art together. I would like to thank our partners, the Wright Museum, City of Detroit Media Services, Kristen Richardson, and tonight, Detroit ACE founder, Rochelle Riley. Through history and through music, we are reminded that we are not just witnesses to Detroit's history, we are a part of it. And tonight, we continue that story together. Without further ado, Jamon Jordan and Alvin Waddles.
Thank you so much, Lacey. Hello, everyone. Hello. Good evening. Peace to everybody here. What up, though? Greetings to everybody who didn't get New Edition tickets. I'm your consolation prize. So it's great to see everyone here tonight for the annual Black History Month lecture from the official historian of the city of Detroit. That's me. And I'm happy to be here to talk to you just for a little while. And of course, I would like to thank again and introduce again the great musician Alvin Waddles, who will be accompanying me tonight in this presentation. Yeah, give a round of applause for Mr. Alvin Waddles. But before we start, we need to take a moment to reflect on the life and legacy of great ones. John Green passed away a few months ago. He was a historian here in the city of Detroit, and he published with his own dime, his own energy, the Michigan Manual of Freedom's Progress, which was the Lincoln Jubilee papers for the state of Michigan. 50 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, the United States government is studying the condition of black people and want a report from every state of the condition of black people in that state. And Michigan's manual goes out in 50 years after. However, it was never published for the public. He, on his own dime, on his own strength, his own energy, published it, republished it, and sold it. And the reason we can look at those records and look at those people and hear their stories and see their homes and connect with the legacy of those people is because of the work of John Green. Also, Yom Desjardins. Yom Desjardins, I called him the historian of Paradise Valley. And if you ever saw Yom Desjardins, he was known as Scurv, but he was also, he was Doc. We called him Doc. There is nobody who had a better knowledge of Paradise Valley than Doc Yom Desjardins. Because when I talk about Paradise Valley, I'm telling you the history of this place, the history of these people. When Yom Desjardins, when Doc talks about Paradise Valley, he's telling you who was in the room and how they talked and what they ate that day, because he was there. And we lost him at the age of 96. And David Rambo. Many of you know David Rambo, the founder of Project Bait, the founder of the TV show For My People, and an ardent activist and mover and shaker right here in the city of Detroit, who inspired many of us who came up here in the city of Detroit watching For My People every week. And of course, we need to reflect on the life and legacy of Jesse Louis Jackson. He was born in 1933 in South Carolina. He joined, became a part of the civil rights movement, became a part of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference during the Selma to Montgomery marches, the movement for voting rights in 1965. Will end up in Chicago, the founder of Operation Push and the Rainbow Coalition, eventually becoming Rainbow Push. Will continue in civil rights activism throughout the rest of the 60s after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. through the 70s and the 80s. In 1984, he becomes a candidate for the presidency of the United States. In 1988, he not only is a candidate, he wins Michigan as he's running, and he registers more people to vote than it had ever been done in America's history when he did it in 1988. His candidacy, his voter registration drive is how there was some Democratic wins in the 1990s. There would have been no Bill Clinton getting elected if he didn't have all these Democrats who were registered to vote to be able to vote for Bill Clinton, and then later be able to vote for Barack Obama. So I want us to take a moment to reflect on these great ones that we have lost in the past days, weeks, and months. They have left us a lot, and I'm here to talk about some of the stuff that they would want us to talk about. I was born and raised in the city of Detroit. I attended schools in both Detroit public schools and Highland Park public schools because I lived on the border. My house was in Detroit, but my grandmother lived around the corner. She was in Highland Park, so sometimes I went to Highland Park schools, sometimes I went to Detroit public schools. I had a lot of teachers who weren't interested at all in teaching Black history. But I also had some great teachers who taught us about Dr. King, about Malcolm X, about Frederick Douglass, about Harriet Tubman. Those great teachers were teaching us about resistance to oppression. And today, my topic is let our motto be resistance. But I didn't get this on my own. I got this because I'm standing on the shoulders of those who came before me. As I was learning about resistance from these great teachers, I was also teaching myself, going to the school library, where I got the autobiography of Malcolm X, The Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey, The Black Panther Speak by Philip Foner, and so much more. Some of those books I returned. Some of those books. At the same time, music was playing a powerful part in my political consciousness. It's the 1980s. Hip hop is the music I listen to almost every day and most of that day. But in the 1980s, there is a movement of political conscious rap, and it is having a major effect on my consciousness. Listen.
Another summer. Sound of the funky drummer. Music in your heart, cause I know you got a soul. Hey, listen if you're missing, y'all. Swinging while I'm singing. Hey, giving what you're getting. Know what I know in. While the black band's sweating. In the rhythm I'm rolling. Gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey, our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be.
That song was released the year I graduated from high school. From Grandmaster Flash's The Message, to Run DMC's Proud to Be Black, to Stevie Wonder and Bob Marley, and even Gil Scott-Heron, The Last Poets, who I first heard on WDET, I was listening to music that not only sounded great, but was opening my mind to powerful messages of not only racism, but the powerful fight against it. KRS-One and Boogie Down Productions and X-Clan both dropped albums as I was graduating from high school and took conscious hip-hop to the next level. But I wasn't the only one. This is happening to a lot of people. My classmate and the president of my high school graduating class was a young man named Don Rico Brent. His name today is Tafari Brent, but he was also an MC when we were in high school together. His MC name was Chaos, and his DJ, Jason Wilson, was named DJ Maestro. And they dropped this in our senior year.
Deep meditation on my black nation. I'm sitting back and chilling while thinking of my liberation. What an inspiration, a thought of revelation. America's falling out the word of salvation. I'm sick of being a slave, trapped like a lab rat. The black is back with a whole new format. No shorts I taken on this tour around. It's either freedom or master case of beatdowns. I call my clan up, I'm ready to get clicked up. Instead of drinks, it's your brain I'm gonna stick up. Wrapping your skull full of bull and dog garbage. This information is new, here's my real knowledge. Time for me to keep on a truth tip. Time for me to give a revolutionary mind lift. Raise your fist, the coming is near. 400 years of revenge is here. So yo, check out my rhyme flow. I'm just an average brother and my freedom's what I'm fighting for.
There's a call for revolutionaries. Black revolutionaries. There's a call for revolutionaries. The black call revolutionaries.
In these past few years, we have seen that black people refuse to accept racism. They refuse to accept attacks on black history. They refuse to accept racism from corporations. They refuse to accept racism from politicians. They refuse to accept police brutality. Black Lives Matter has been a force in this country and even abroad for over a decade now. Here in Detroit, Detroit Will Breathe ushered in a campaign against racism and police abuse after the murder of George Floyd. There have been fights against water shutoffs and for a water affordability program in Detroit led by Monica Lewis Patrick and we, the people of Detroit. There have been fights against the thousands of home foreclosures due to wrongful assessments of property taxes led by many activists, including the People's Platform of Detroit. There have been boots on the ground against violence in our community by New Era Detroit, the People's Action, and Force Detroit. There's been a movement for food sovereignty led by the Detroit Black Community Food Sovereignty Network, who created and have now, we all can be a part of the Black-led Detroit People's Food Co-op. And there's been a major movement for reparations in Detroit. And for a long time, that movement was led by Queen Mother Joanne Watson. Detroit has resisted oppression because it's a part of our legacy. Let our motto be resistance. It's time. Also here in Detroit, there's been a long battle against racism in education. There have been teachers who infuse Black history in the curriculum. There have been parents and activists like Mother Helen Moore who fought against the state takeovers of our schools, where each time there was an emergency manager, the schools had less and less resources. There have been educators and activists like Mama Imani Humphrey, who initiated African-centered schools in Detroit, schools like Aisha Shule and W.B. Du Bois Preparatory Academy, Insorama Institute, Timbuktu Academy of Science and Technology, the Taki Taliba Schoolhouse, Malcolm X and Paul Robeson Academy, Marcus Garvey Academy, Mae Jemison Academy, Mary McLeod Bethune Academy, and also, long before that, Muhammad's University of Islam. The schools founded in 1932, they were all founded to combat white supremacy in the educational system. But 10 years ago, 7 students in Detroit public schools initiated a class action lawsuit against the school system and the state of Michigan, Gary B. versus Snyder. They argued that the schools deprived the students the right to education, and they were able to win in appeals court. But before that, in 1974, we had the NAACP lead the Milliken versus Bradley lawsuit to fight against the inequality between Detroit public schools and suburban schools. You had 3 students, Judy Walker, Charles Colding, and Michael Basher, lead a walkout at Northern High School in 1966 because of the racial inequality and abuse in Detroit public schools. But this fight goes all the way back to the 1800s when Detroit established Color School and Color School number 2, where Black students attended. The schools were only a half day. You only went up to the 5th grade. The white schools were full day and went through high school. The color schools didn't have any resources, no books, no paper, no pencils, no chalk, no chalkboard, no desks. It wasn't really school. And Black parents and teachers, Joseph Workman, Joseph Ferguson, and a teacher named Fannie Mae Richards, who brought kindergarten to the state of Michigan. They led the fight to overturn segregation in Detroit public schools in 1869 85 years before Brown versus Board of Education. Let our motto be resistance. Of course, Black Detroiters also fought racism in the political system. Two of the founders of the Congressional Black Caucus, Congressman Charles Diggs Jr. and Congressman John Conyers, were from Detroit. And they were pillars of civil rights, human rights, economic and social justice. But this goes all the way back to the first Black state legislator in Michigan, William Webb Ferguson, whose father and grandfather were both Underground Railroad agents. And William Ferguson himself brought a lawsuit to the Michigan Supreme Court that overturned the legal discrimination in public places in Michigan back in 1890. James and Grace Lee Boggs, Milton and Richard Henry, and Reverend Albert Clegg Jr. founded the Freedom Now Party in 1963. Now, Reverend Albert Clegg Jr., we know him as Jaramogi Abebe Ajiman. And the Shrine of Black Madonna created the Black Slate to push for candidates that will push for policies that benefit the Black community. But no political figure in Detroit is more significant in the fight against the racism in the political system than the Honorable Coleman Alexander Young. Born in Alabama, but raised in Black Bottom, he fought in the labor movement, in civil rights. He fought as a Tuskegee Airman in World War II, and as a lieutenant in the 477th Bomber Squadron, he was the main organizer of the Freeman Field Mutiny, where Black officers came into the officers' club, which only white officers could use. Over 100 Black officers were arrested and never accepted the unequal treatment of Black airmen. He went on to become one of the founders of the National Negro Labor Council, which was fighting for labor rights and civil rights. And he was brought to the McCarthyite House Un-American Activities Committee. His attorney sitting right next to him is George Crockett. When they asked him, "Are you now or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party?" he asserted his Fifth Amendment rights. Then they asked him, "Is anyone in the National Negro Labor Council or anyone you know a member of the Communist Party?" He said, "You must have me mixed up with a stool pigeon." And from that point forward, you can listen to the tapes yourself, he put the committee on trial. He put the Southern congressman on trial for blocking Black people from voting. He put the Congress on trial for racism, lynchings, Jim Crow, and going after people for fighting for their labor and civil rights. He was blocked from employment for years. They called it blackball. He was whiteballed. But he was a hero to the Black community. He was elected to the Michigan Senate, and he condemned the actions of the nearly all-white police force during the 1967 rebellion, especially the murder of 3 teenagers at the Algiers Motel. And he ran in 1973 with the platform of ending stress. I mean, ending stress. Stop the robberies, enjoy safe streets, which was a Detroit police squad that had been shooting and killing unarmed and innocent Black men for years. He was elected and became the longest and strongest serving mayor of Detroit in history. And despite many suburbanites' attacks against him, to this day, he was and is a hero of Black Detroiters. And it was under Mayor Young that Detroit became a chocolate city. And now we have the first woman mayor of the city of Detroit. And she's a Black woman, because we a Black city. Let our motto be resistance. After the 1967 rebellion, in 1968, a group of activists organized the Black Government Conference. This gathering, led by the Henry brothers, Milton and Richard, established the Provisional Government of the Republic of New Africa. The Henry brothers were friends and supporters of Malcolm X, and they became Amari Obadeli and Brother Gaidi Obadeli. Other founding members are Robert Williams, Queen Mother Moore, and Betty Shabazz, the wife and widow of Malcolm X. The RNA holds that Black people in America constitute a nation and that we're new Africans. They want Black people to have the choice of whether or not they want to be American citizens or citizens of New Africa. They have been organizing for the establishment of a nation comprised of several southern states and portions of states, the Black Belt, since they were conceived. And they have been the major voice for reparations. A couple of months after they were formed, a group of workers at the Dodge main plant in Hamtramck organized the Dodge Revolutionary Union movement. Led by General Gordon Baker, the group organized a series of wildcat strikes in protest against the racism of Dodge Main, as well as the leadership of the UAW, the United Auto Workers. They weren't just fighting against the corporation, they were fighting against the racism in the labor union. They were followed by the Ford Revolutionary Union movement at the Ford River Rouge plant, and ELRUM, the Eldon Avenue Revolutionary Union movement at the Chrysler Eldon Avenue plant. Then we had the United Parcel Service workers. They did a wildcat strike. They became UPRUM. Then the health workers did one, and they became HRUM. And the Detroit news workers, they did it too, and they became NewRUM, as well as postal workers and others. In March 1969, the RNA were having their first annual convention at New Bethel Baptist Church on Linwood in Philadelphia, when members were harassed and attacked by Detroit police officers. They shot into the church. The Black Legionnaires, the security protection of the RNA, defended the meeting from the police when the police began shooting inside the church. 2 police officers would get shot, one of whom would never get up again. The people in the community, including Mother Rosa Parks, who lived down the street, contacted Judge George Crockett, who is, at this point is a progressive Black judge. He came to the jail and released most of the RNA members on personal bond. They would be defended in court by an attorney named Kenny Cockrell, and almost all of them will be acquitted. 2 months after the attack on New Bethel, the Revolutionary Union movement combined, all those different RUMs combined to become the League of Revolutionary Black Workers, with the leaders General Baker, Kenny Cockrell, John Watson, Mike Hamlin, John Williams, Chuck Wooten, and Luke Tripp. They wanted respect. Founding of the League of Revolutionary Black Workers in 1966, which is the same year as the Northern High School walkout. A group of young Black men who were part of the Afro-American youth movement were organizing against police brutality and harassment on the East Side. In August of 1966, on Kercheval in Pennsylvania, a group of 7 young Black men refused to move when the Big Four told them to move. Now, since the 1950s, the Big Four were units of Detroit police officers with one uniformed officer as the driver and 3 plainclothes officers who were bigger than normal in an unmarked dark blue or black sedan. They were known for their brutality on black men, women, and children. When they drove by, you gave up the corner. But this time, these black men didn't move. The officers got out, and it was on and popping. The police, the Big Four, finally realizing they were in a quandary with these 7 black men, were able to get backup. And the backup got to the scene very quickly because there was an anti-Vietnam War protest going on downtown, and the tactical mobile unit was there. So that means it would only take them a few minutes to get to Kercheval. On top of that, it started pouring down raining. And y'all know it's hard to sustain an uprising in a thunderstorm. A number of people were arrested that night and the days after, including General Baker and artist activist Glanton Dowdell. Although the police and community were able to end that uprising rather swiftly, it would not be the same a year later. On July 23, 1967, the police raided the United Community League for Civic Action, an organization that was involved in registering people in the neighborhood to vote, as well as getting people to run for office. It was located on 12th Street between Claremont and Atkinson. The building was a former economy print shop and was operating as an after-hours club, or as the police call it, a blind pig. The raid occurred during a party held for 2 Vietnam War veterans who returned alive. So many Vietnam War veterans did not make it back, so they were celebrating these 2 Vietnam War veterans who came back alive. And instead of 15 to 20 people being there, which the police suspected, there were 85 people in the building. The police, at their lowest manpower on that Sunday morning at 3 a.m., attempted to arrest all 85 people. And they were met by a crowd outside. Due to some of the people shouting to the crowd that they were being abused by the officers, along with the long history of police brutality in Detroit, as well as so many other episodes of racism, housing discrimination, school inequality, job discrimination, businesses that were racist, the destruction of Black Bottom and Paradise Valley, which was still in the minds of the people who were living there, recent incidents of racial violence, and the racist police, especially the Big Four. The crowd erupted against the police officers, and that was the beginning of a 5-day rebellion that would end with 1,200 people injured, 7,200 arrests, 400 buildings destroyed, and 43 people killed, most of whom were killed by people in uniform, including 4-year-old Tanya Blanding, and Carl Cooper, 16 years old, Fred Temple, 17 years old, and Aubrey Pollard, 18 years old, killed by police officers at the Algiers Motel. No officer would serve a day in prison for those killings. The city was on fire.
Oh, the motor city's burning. It ain't a thing in the world that I can do. And don't you know the big D is burning? Ain't a thing in the world that Johnny can do. My hometown burning down to the ground. Wester and Vietnam. Oh, it started on 12 and Claremont that morning. I just don't know what it's all about. Oh, it started on 12 and Claremont that morning. I don't know what it's all about. The fire wagon kept coming. The sniper just wouldn't let them put it out.
Give it up for John Lee Hooker. 2 years prior to the '67 rebellion, Malcolm X gave a speech in Detroit. It was February 14th, 1965. Malcolm's home in East Elmhurst, Queens, had been firebombed early that morning. He stood outside in the February cold with a rifle to protect the house until he could get his family to safety. When he got to Detroit, he was coughing profusely. He was here to speak at the first annual Dignity and Projection Scholarship Program, organized by Richard and Milton Henry, along with Reverend Albert Clegg Jr., Jeramogi Abebe Ajima. Reverend Clegg asked his brother-in-law, Dr. Eddie Evans, to help Malcolm. Dr. Evans gave Malcolm a sedative to help him sleep. And after a few hours of sleep, he woke up without that bitter cough. Dr. Eddie Evans was married to Gladys Clegg, and his full name is Eddie Warren Evans. He is the father of Blair Evans and Warren C. Evans. Warren C. Evans is the Wayne County executive, and the C stands for Clegg. Malcolm spoke, and a week later, he was assassinated. A year prior to that, Malcolm X spoke in Detroit again. After being forced out of the Nation of Islam, it was April 1964, and he delivered the lecture, The Ballot or the Bullet. In this speech, he talked about the importance of black nationalism and black unity and the need for black people to control the politics, the economics, and the social life of their own communities. Malcolm said, join any organization that you see is doing something for the people. He was speaking then at King Solomon Baptist Church on 14th and Marquette. A few months prior to that, in November 1963, Malcolm gave one of his most famous speeches at that same venue, Message to the Grassroots. The speech was part of the Northern Negro Grassroots Leadership Conference, organized by the Group on Advanced Leadership and the Freedom Now Party, both of which were co-founded by Reverend Clegg, James and Grace Lee Boggs, and the Henry brothers. In that speech, Malcolm criticized the 1963 March on Washington, as well as the philosophy of nonviolence, and discussed the need for a black revolution. He also critiqued the Detroit Walk to Freedom, which occurred earlier that year. Now, the Detroit Walk to Freedom was organized by the Detroit Council for Human Rights, which was led by Reverend Clarence LaVaughn Franklin. We know him as CL. The pastor of New Bethel Baptist Church and the father of the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin. Reverend Albert Clegg Jr. is also one of the founders of the Detroit Council for Human Rights. He was the pastor of Central United Church of Christ, which of course we know will become the Shrine of the Black Madonna. Benjamin McFall, the owner of McFall Brothers Funeral Homes, he was one of the founders of the Detroit Council for Human Rights. Attorney and businessman James Del Rio is one of the founders of the Detroit Council for Human Rights. And Tony Brown from Tony Brown's Journal. It wasn't Tony Brown's Journal yet. These men would be the chief organizers of the march. Now, eventually, former Michigan Governor John Swainson would get involved in the march. Detroit Mayor Jerry Kavanaugh and UAW President Walter Reuther, they would all get involved in the march. But the original members, the original founders were the people I said first. At least 125,000 people came down Woodward Avenue, from Adelaide to Jefferson. At the end of the march, 25,000 people entered Cobo Hall and Cobo Arena, and they listened to a 30-minute speech by Dr. King, which he ended with, I have a dream. Now, he did that speech in Detroit 2 months before he gave that part in Washington, D.C. But in the Detroit speech, he said some other stuff. He directed Detroiters to fight against educational inequality in Detroit. He said that Jim Crow is in the North. Housing discrimination, job discrimination. He's talking about the Jim Crow that's going on, not just in the South, but here in the city of Detroit. Let our motto be resistance. In 1945, a black woman in Detroit, Sarah Elizabeth Ray, would initiate a lawsuit against Bob Lowe when they refused to let black people ride the Bob Lowe boat or go to the island amusement park except as workers. It would go to the US Supreme Court and she would win. In 1944, Orso and Minnie McGee, a black couple, would be sued and told to move out of their home at 4626 Seaboard because the home had a racial restrictive covenant in the deed. In 1947, they would appeal because they lost in the circuit court, they lost in the state court, but they'd appeal to the US Supreme Court with Thurgood Marshall as their attorney. The Supreme Court would rule that racial restrictive covenants cannot be enforced by the government. In 1943, there was a vicious race riot in the city of Detroit. It began at Belle Isle. It was a true race riot. Whatever you call 67, I don't care if you call it a riot, a rebellion, or uprising, what it's not is a race riot. 67 is a lot of things, but it ain't a race riot. It's not black people and white people fighting each other in the middle of the street. But 43 is exactly that. It's black and white people fighting each other in the street. There were 34 people killed. 9 whites were killed, and they were killed by black people. 7 black people are killed, and they're killed by white Detroiters. Among the citizens, the fighting is pretty even, because black people in Detroit are not known for nonviolent civil disobedience. However, 17 black people were killed by members of the Detroit Police Department. No whites are killed by members of the Detroit Police Department. That's the difference in the race riot in 43. But a year prior to that, in 1942, which is a precursor to the 42 race riot, the battle happened at the Sojourner Truth Homes on Nevada and Fenelon. The Sojourner Truth Homes were built by the federal government to house black people who were working in a factory that had a defense contract. So the federal government needs workers in the former auto factories, which are now producing material for the federal government to fight in World War II. It's not enough housing in Black Bottom. It's not enough housing in 8 Mile and Wyoming neighborhood. It's not enough housing in the Old West Side. These are the areas that black people can live in. So they have to find some way to build new housing for these defense workers. So the Sojourner Truth homes are built by the federal government so that you couldn't just be black and live there. You had to have a job that had a defense contract. So they get built. Black people are ready to move in. They had to pay their first month's deposit in January of 1942. They're supposed to move in February 28th, 1942. So that's the date, that's the move-in date. There is a wall of white people to block them from moving in on move-in day. And like I said earlier, black people in Detroit are not known for nonviolent civil disobedience. They gonna move in. And so they go to confront. So they bring Tyrone, man them. And they're ready to move in. You can even Google the pictures of the Sojourner Truth, and you'll see see a brother there. He got a wrench in his hand, and so you see what he about to do. He about to move in. Yeah. The police arrest the black people. So not the people who are breaking the law, but the people who are trying to move into their homes that they have already paid their first month's deposit on, and the federal government built for them. So they get arrested. Black people will finally move in April of 1942. And they'll move in with National Guard guarding them as they're moving in the middle of World War II. That's right. That's how life is in the city.
A boy's born in hot time, Mississippi, surrounded by four walls that ain't so pretty. His parents give him love and affection to keep him strong, moving in the right direction, living just enough for the city. His father works some days for 14 hours, and you can bet he'd bet
Give it up for that genius, Stevie Wonder. Grew up in the city of Detroit, in the Bagley neighborhood, went to Fitzgerald Elementary School. In March of 1925, Aldine Mathis and his wife, Fleta Mathis, moved into the upstairs of a two-family flat at 5913 Northfield on the west side. They were immediately threatened by the Ku Klux Klan. And in April, mobs of white residents started to gather outside of their home. Aldine and his friend, Austin Burton, had to stand on the porch with their rifles to get the crowd to move away. Austin Burton is Baba Malik Yakini's father. On April 13th, bricks were thrown through the window. Fleta Mathis grabbed a pistol from the bedside table and fired 2 shots. She was arrested. Her attorneys were W. Hayes McKinney and Cecil Rowley. The judge ruled that she fired in defense of her home and that her act was legal. The Mathises were not forced out. They would live there for another decade. In June of 1925, Dr. Alexander Turner, chief surgeon at Dunbar Hospital. Dunbar Hospital is the first black nonprofit hospital in the city of Detroit. He moved into a home on Spokane Street on the Old West Side. A mob of white residents started to gather outside of their home. The mob bust through the door in this case, and they demanded at gunpoint that Turner sign over the deed to them. The police were there the whole time. Dr. Turner's attorney was Cecil Rowley. Turner got his family in the car, and their chauffeur drove them away as the mob threw his things through the large front picture window. In July of 1925, Vollington Bristol, one of Dr. Sweet's closest friends, Dr. Ocean Sweet, we'll talk about him in a minute, moved into 7804 American Street, a home that he had been previously renting out to white renters. But the white renters refused to pay him over and over. So he began renting it out to black renters. The white residents chased out his black renters. And on the 4th of July, Vollington Bristol came to the house with 4 black families about to move them in. The white residents of the neighborhood met him at the house and told him he bet not rent to any Negroes again. Vollington said, okay, I agree. And then he moved in himself. A mob came to attack the house on July 7th, and they attacked the police officers who were stationed at the house. Vollington Bristol and his wife Agnes owned a funeral home in Black Bottom. It was roughly located behind Detroit Academy of Arts and Sciences. If y'all know where DOS is, you know where that's at. Down the street from the Martin Luther King homes, around the corner from the Elmwood Library. So if you know that neighborhood, that's Black Bottom. That's where his funeral home was. He called people from Black Bottom, and they came from Black Bottom to the Old West Side. Black folks came armed to protect Vollington Bristol and his wife Agnes Bristol. And they got arrested. But Bristol stayed in the house because the police would give him protection. And Bristol knew that he couldn't go outside when the crowds were around because you can't depend on the police to protect you. The Ku Klux Klan burned the cross in an empty lot near Bristol's home, but Bristol was also not forced to move out. However, while the police were guarding the Bristol home, there was nobody protecting the house at 9428 Stopel, a few blocks away, where John and Lucy Fletcher bought and moved into a home with their 2 sons. A white woman went door to door telling all of the white neighbors to come outside and get these. The crowd assembled outside of the Fletcher's home and picked up pieces of coal and rocks, and they broke every window in the house. When police officers finally showed up, they were overpowered by the mob. The crowd began to scream, "Lynch the..." John Fletcher grabbed his rifle, pointed it outside the window, and blasted into the mob. 15-year-old Leonard Paul hit the ground with 2 shots in his hip. The crowd scurried off the street. Fletcher was arrested, jailed, and made bail before the next morning. He went to his house and he began packing. He was charged with assault with a deadly weapon, and the judge dismissed the charges. The Fletchers packed their things the next day and moved out the day after that. This is 3 months. Those events I just said, they're all within 3 months. In the 4th month, in September of 1925, Dr. Ocean and Gladys Sweet moved into their home on Garland and Charlevoix. The owners sold it to the Sweets, this all-white neighborhood. They sold it to the Sweets because they pushed the Sweets to pay $6,000 more than the value of the home. Today, that's the equivalent of $90,000 more. In total, they paid $18,500 for that home, $18,500. Today, that's $260,000 for that home. On the first day of their move-in, they were warned. So what's happening is the owners, knowing that this is an all-white neighborhood, is selling it to the Sweets anyway because the owners are more capitalist than racist. They know they can get more money off this black doctor than they could get off of a white home buyer. A white home buyer would never pay an extra $90,000 for this home because a white home buyer has other options. Oh, you're gonna try to cheat me? I got other places I can go. But black people don't have all these options. Black Bottom is so overcrowded. Black Bottom has enough homes for 30,000 people. There's 140,000 people living in Black Bottom. On the first day of their move-in, they're warned by a small group of residents representing the Waterworks Improvement Association, which is the white homeowners group in the area. I call them the Unwelcoming Committee. Dr. Ocean and Gladys Sweet protected their homes with help from his brothers, Dr. Otis and Henry Sweet, his friends Charles Washington, Leonard Morse, William Davis, John Ladding, his handyman Norris Murray, and his chauffeur Joe Mack. And when the mob shows up and start busting out the windows, the upper dormer window opens up, 2 shots come from inside the house into the crowd. One person is shot in the leg, another person across the street is shot and will never get up again. The police arrest everybody in the house and charge them with first-degree murder, which means premeditated murder, which means you moved into the house to kill white people. That's what they're being charged with. And they're going to, of course, have an all-white jury. And the Sweets, along with the Detroit branch of the NAACP, hire a black defense team. This first trial is a black defense team. While that trial is going on, the national NAACP gets involved and sends in Clarence Darrow. But the first trial overwhelmingly was led by this black defense team, and it ends in a hung jury. The next trial, they try just Henry Sweet. They don't try everybody. They try Henry Sweet. Why him? Y'all know how it go. Y'all watch the first 48. Y'all watch all those murder shows that come on TV. They take you down and put you in that room and start talking to you. And some people say, I'm not saying nothing. I'll wait till my lawyer. I want my lawyer. And some people start talking. And Henry Sweet talked. He said they were trying to kill us in there. We had to do something. So yeah, we shot. So they're gonna charge him because he's the only person that when they took downtown said that he shot. So they're gonna try him first and then go down the line and get everybody else. This time, Clarence Darrow is the lead attorney. The black attorneys are on the team, but Clarence Darrow is the lead attorney. And he's going to argue not what the NAACP kind of envisioned, which was a fight against housing discrimination, which the NAACP sees as the root of this, but he's going to argue something my grandma used to tell me. My grandma said, if somebody ever try to come up into this house, you do whatever you got to do to them. And if they do it on the porch, drag them in. My grandmother was teaching me castle doctrine. Now, what we now know about castle doctrine is even if they don't come in your house, if they're attacking your house from outside, you still got the right to defend it. So if they're throwing bricks through your house or shooting at your house, they don't have to come in. You have the right to defend it even though they're not in your house. But that's what Clarence Darrow argues. He argues that they were being attacked. And he says, you can find my clients guilty if you want to, but understand if you do it, it's because of your own prejudice. That's why you're doing this, because if this were a different family, this wouldn't even be a trial. And everybody knows what Clarence Darrow was saying. He's saying that if a white family got a mob showed up at their house throwing bricks through the window and they shot somebody, nobody would have went on trial, definitely not for first-degree murder. And so they are acquitted, and charges are dropped on everybody else. But of course, the Sweet family will be devastated by this. Mrs. Sweet would die from tuberculosis, which she contracted at the Wayne County Jail. She also brings it to her 2-year-old child, who dies within months of the trial. And then Henry Sweet would die after that, all of tuberculosis. And then Dr. Sweet, of course, dealing with the pain of losing basically a chunk of his family, his wife, his brother, and his daughter. He won't be right ever again. And the IRS will go after him. They will go after his practice. They'll audit him. The insurance companies will raise their insurance premiums on his practice. And the Michigan chapter of the Ku Klux Klan will lobby the state government to pass a gun registration law, where now you have to get a permission from a gun registration board to own a gun. The Ku Klux Klan lobbied for this. And so the Ku Klux Klan fought for gun control for certain people. Who's in this gun registration board? The police chief, the Wayne County prosecutor who charged him with first-degree murder, and a state police representative. Everybody knows what it's about. It's now if what happened with Fleda Mathis when she shot out the window, John Fletcher when he blasted out his window, and now the Sweets. If this happens again, you might win for defending your home, but you're going to jail for that illegal gun because the gun won't be legal. That's how Michigan got its first gun registration law. So we will lose Dr. Sweet. We will lose him. He will be a victim of suicide. So the center of the black community at this time, even though there are black people trying to move to other parts of the city because Black Bottom is overcrowded, the center of the black community is Hastings Street.
Well, my mama, she didn't allow me just to stay out all night long. Oh, Lord. Well, my mama didn't allow me just to stay out all night long. I didn't care if she didn't allow. I would boogie woogie in a house. When I first come to town, people, I was walking down Hastings Street. I heard everybody talking about the Henry Swain Club. I decided I'd drop in there that night. And when I got there, I said, yes, people, yes, they were really having a ball. Yes, I know.
John Lee Hooker. That same year that the trial for Dr. Sweet is going on, there is a man who was born in West Virginia who had almost a decade prior founded a group, an organization called the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History. His name was Dr. Carter G. Woodson. Dr. Carter G. Woodson is the second black person to graduate with a PhD from Harvard University. He is a dedicated historian. He basically lives, breathes, speaks history. And what is his major focus is the fact that, number one, black people don't know their history. But number two, white folks teach a false history about black people. So black people don't know their own history, and the people who are teaching it is teaching a false history. It's, when it comes to slavery, it's called the lost cause myth. And that's what's being taught in the schools. That slavery wasn't that bad, slaves was happy, and black people were ignorant, and when they had the right to vote, they messed up everything in the South. That's what's being taught in schools. That ain't what's being taught on Fox News. That's what's being taught in every school, in every textbook. And so he's fighting a war against that. And so he initiates Negro History Week, the same week where there's black people already celebrating the birthday of Abraham Lincoln and the birthday of Frederick Douglass. So since that's already existing, he takes that week, and what he's trying to do is first teach teachers. So teachers don't get this in college. You can become a teacher, you can be trained to be a teacher by another teacher, but they can't teach what they don't know, and they can't lead where they can't go. That's what Dr. Baba Hannibal Afrique told us. So they don't know. So he's going to basically, all over the country, they're going to have these seminars, these programs where there's going to be intense teaching of black history to teachers first, but also ministers, people who work with youth, so that once they teach it, then it will be known even though the schools don't have it, the textbooks don't have it. That's the original purpose of Negro History Week. For 50 years, we had Negro History Week. In 1976, it was extended to a month. Black people were already celebrating it as Black History Week, but some black people were celebrating it as a whole month. Finally, the nation embraced the fact that black people would have a month, and so it became Black History Month. So 50 years of Negro History Week, 50 years of Black History Month, 100 years of this history. Now that don't mean that you can't study history at all through the year. Come on now. So Mother's Day is one day. You telling me you only honor your mother on that one day? Heck, no, you bet not. But that don't mean don't honor her on Mother's Day. All right? You can have both. Don't be talking about getting rid of Black History Month. Keep Black History Month and keep doing Black History every other month too. Nobody gets rid of their month. So he was dealing with the lost cause myth in the schools, the rise of the Ku Klux Klan in the 1920s. The Ku Klux Klan were at their height in the 1920s. Here in the city of Detroit, just a couple of blocks from where we are right now, on John R. and, what street is that? Thank you. Somebody know their history. John R. and Hancock, on John R. and Hancock was the castle. It was a 40,000 square foot building. Castle was spelled with the K. The Ku Klux Klan got this thing about Ks. And that was the headquarters of the Michigan chapter of the Ku Klux Klan in the 1920s. And over 100,000 members were in that organization, half of which were in the city of Detroit. We were living and fighting against. Dr. Woodson is doing on a national scale, but here in the city of Detroit, we're fighting against a ball of confusion.
People moving out, people moving in. Why? Because of the color of their skin. Run, 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 but you sure can't hide. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Vote for me, and I'll set you free. Rap on, brother, rap on. Well, the only person talking about love, now, brother, is the preacher. And it seems nobody's interested in learning but the teacher.
Segregation, determination, demonstration, integration, aggravation, humiliation, obligation to my nation.
That's what the world is today. There has been a myth taught about history, a whole bunch of them, but I'm only going to talk about one right now. Everybody knows, or everybody should know, that the South had slavery. And everybody should know that the South had Jim Crow. The myth is that Jim Crow and slavery is a Southern phenomenon. That's the myth. And the myth has been propagated by Northern media. So the newspapers at the time, the schools at the time have always taught that the South was bad and the North was good. Especially after the Civil War, but then again after the Civil Rights Movement or after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in '68. The way the media portrayed is that, Mississippi is really bad. Alabama, they're so bad down here. But you're not supposed to know what was going on in Chicago, what's going on in New York, what's going on in Boston, what's going on in the city of Detroit. We already know that Detroit had color school number 1 and color school number 2 in the 1800s. The South don't have schools for black people. They have slavery. That's their answer to the race issue. But the North creates Jim Crow. Jim Crow is a Northern created thing. The South don't need Jim Crow, they got slavery. The North, which ended slavery in most cases before the South, created segregation, another form of racial inequality. You don't end slavery in any state, including Michigan, and start practicing equality. Slavery ends and a new form of racial discrimination, racial inequality is created. The South learned it from the North. So here we are back in the 1800s. It's the Civil War. North Michigan is a Union state. It's not a Confederate state. We don't have Confederate monuments in the city of Detroit and in the state of Michigan. But we got slave owner monuments. All right? So what's happening? It's the middle of the Civil War. The first 3 years of the war, Lincoln is trying not to deal with the issue of slavery. Abolitionists, Frederick Douglass, Sojourner Truth, Harriet Beecher Stowe, who wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, they've all met with President Abraham Lincoln. They're all telling him, you need to end slavery. The South done told you that they left over the issue of slavery. You got the power, it's a war going on, this would be the time when you could do it. Lincoln's trying not to do it, all right? And then his military commanders are coming to him. Hey, Lincoln, we invaded Louisiana, and guess what we found? Fields of cotton with black folks working the cotton. And guess what they doing down there, Mr. Lincoln? They selling it into Europe, and that's giving them the money to continue this war. If you ended slavery, the war could end faster because soldiers ain't gonna keep fighting if they don't got money, they don't got food, they don't got weapons, they don't got artillery. It's gonna end the war quicker. In September of 1862, Lincoln issues a final warning to the South. He says, I'm giving you one more chance. If you come back to the United States, you can continue doing what you've been doing, which means you can continue slavery. But if you don't, by January 1st, 1863, I'm going to sign an Emancipation Proclamation. And I'm going to end slavery in every state or part of a state that's still in rebellion. Not one state comes back on January 1st, 1863, because they say, we got a president, we got a country, we got a Congress, we got an army, and we fighting you. Why are we gonna listen to you? You ain't our president. That's how they see it. And so on January 1st, 1863, Lincoln signs the Emancipation Proclamation. So I'm not one of the people who say it didn't do anything, because it definitely did something. But what's happening now is when Union Army goes into southern states, before they are just fighting Confederates. But now, black people are running away to Union lines because they've heard about this Emancipation Proclamation. They ain't got no Facebook, nobody texted them, nobody DM'd them. It wasn't on CNN. But black people heard about this. Word got around. Because everywhere that white people are, black people are. So everything white people know, black people know. And within the first 6 months of the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation, 1 million black people escaped from slavery. They freed themselves. However, the Emancipation Proclamation helped to facilitate them freeing themselves. So that's the effectiveness of it, not that it by itself freed people, but it gave them the wherewithal to be able to free themselves. And on top of that, it allowed black men to join the Union Army. And when they found out they could join this Union Army, 200,000 black men joined the Union Army. They said, hold on, Mr. Lincoln, let me get this right. You gonna give me a gun? And let me go down south and fight the people that took my kids away from me? Oh, let me get this right, Mr. Lincoln. You gonna give me a gun? You gonna give me a uniform? And you gonna pay me to go down south and fight the people who assaulted my wife and my mother? Oh, I'm joining this war. 200,000 black men joined the war, and they are not drafted. The North has a draft. Many soldiers who fought in the Union for the Union are drafted. The South has a draft. Many people who fought for the South are drafted. Now, the South ain't drafting no black people. They know that if they hand a black man a gun, he don't have to go that far before he starts shooting. But the North don't draft any black folks either. Some people have escaped from slavery, are living in Canada. They escaped on the Underground Railroad. They leave freedom in Canada, come back to the United States to join this war. Harriet Tubman joins the Union Army. She's a spy, a scout, a military commander. She freed more people in one campaign in the Civil War than she did the 13 times she went back and forth to free people. So this is how black people see the war. They don't see the war the same way Lincoln sees it. Lincoln sees the war as bringing the country back together. These black people don't care nothing about Mississippi becoming part of the United States again. That is not why they joined the war. They see this as Nat Turner's rebellion if he had an army. All right, so that's why they fight. But what's going on right here in the city of Detroit? What's going on? So the oldest still existing business in the city of Detroit was founded by Joseph Campbell and his nephew, John Williams. John Williams is the nephew of Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell is Joseph Campbell, really. He's from the French period in the city of Detroit. His family came here with Cadillac. Antoine Delormeau de Cadillac. We say Cadillac. That's when his granddaddy, Joseph Campbell's granddaddy came, all right? But now he's here, he's one, if not the wealthiest Detroiter, he dang near. And his nephew, of course, is wealthy too. His nephew is Cecile Campbell's son. But Cecile Campbell married Henry Williams, a British man. So that's why he's John Williams. But he don't want to be John Williams, because that's kind of like a basic name. Who wants to be John Williams? And you come from the mighty Campbell family. So he adds a middle initial, R, John R. Williams. The R stands for nothing, it's just an R. But it's to differentiate him from the other John Williams that are running around the city of Detroit. Both of them are slave owners in the city of Detroit. Detroit had slavery. And they found the oldest still existing business in the city of Detroit. They found the Michigan Intelligencer and Democratic Free Press. But we know it today simply as the Detroit Free Press. They found the newspaper, which in its early years, for the first 100 years of its existence, is a white supremacist institution. That's what it is. It's first pro-slavery. It's a Democratic newspaper. The Republicans, at least the radical Republicans, are abolitionists. And the Democrats, all of the southern states who seceded had Democratic governors, had Democratic senators, had Democratic congressmen. And so the Free Press is on the side of the South. It's a Southern sympathizing newspaper. And it's been publishing anti-Lincoln stuff ever since he got elected. It's been publishing anti-Civil War. It wants Lincoln to let the South be a nation, leave them alone. And then he signs the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863. And the Free Press starts writing, because of Lincoln, your kids are dying in this godforsaken war for these people. The Free Press does not always say these people. Because of Lincoln, these people are going to start coming to the city of Detroit. Because of Lincoln, these people are gonna come to the city of Detroit and they're gonna live next to you, the horror. Because of Lincoln, these people are gonna come to the city of Detroit and they're gonna steal your jobs. This is what the Free Press is writing. I know you think it's 2020, but it's 1863. Because of Lincoln, these people are gonna come to the city of Detroit and they're gonna molest your women. This is what the Free Press is writing. And in February of 1863, a man is arrested. A black man is arrested, or a man who has, the crowd says is black. And he's arrested for molesting a 9-year-old white girl and an 11-year-old black girl. And the Free Press says, we told you. It's Lincoln's fault. It'll be more of them because of this Emancipation Proclamation, unless somebody does something about it. Faulkner is brought, he's charged, he is arraigned on March 6, 1863 at the old City Hall. So there's been 3 City Halls. We have the Coleman A. Young Municipal Center today. That is, or we call it KMAC. Those of us who work for the city, you know we call it KMAC. That's the Coleman A. Young Municipal Center. That's the one today. It used to be the City County building. The one before that, which is where, right across from Campus Martius, where it was, right across from Campus Martius, where that Starbucks is. I think it's a Potbelly there too. That's where the old one used to be. It was destroyed when they built the new City County building. But then there was one before that in Cadillac Square. So if the other one that was destroyed in the 50s was the old City Hall, then the one before that is the old City Hall. And that's where the court was. And he is charged, he's arraigned, he pleads not guilty, but it's a mob waiting for him. They've already found him guilty. They just need him to come out that door so they can give him a sentence. And when he's brought out the door, they begin shooting. And he's being taken to jail by armed militia. The armed militia don't want to get shot, so they start shooting back at the crowd. The 1863 race riot has begun. They run, because they don't want to, well, actually 2 of them do get shot by the militia, but they run. But then they reassemble, they attack any black person they see. Since they can't get the one they want, they'll get whoever they can. They burn down 30 buildings. They kill a black business owner. They burn down white businesses that hire black people. They burn down white homes because the homes are so close to black homes that when one catches on fire, it catches on to the next house. This is the race riot of 1863. And there's an even bigger one in New York that same year. So the North isn't this promised land. And in 1833, which is the first racial uprising in the city of Detroit, 2 people have escaped from slavery, Thornton and Lucy Blackburn. They're in love. They are from Louisville, Kentucky. And by all oral reports, we don't have photographs yet, but by all oral reports, Lucy Blackburn is foreign. F-O-I-N-E exclamation point. For those that don't know, there's fine and there's foreign. She's very beautiful. And I'm sure that helped Thornton fall in love with her. But being beautiful, of course, can hurt a woman who's enslaved. Her slave owner sells her into what we would call today human sex trafficking. She's sold to be a fancy woman. Sexual slavery, where the slave owner makes the money from the forced prostitution of this enslaved woman. She don't want to live that life. The man that loves her don't want her to live that life. She will never live that life. She's sold into it, but before she ever has to do it, they escape and come here to the city of Detroit. They're living here for 2 years. He's a brick mason, she's a seamstress. They're living a regular life here in the city of Detroit until slave catchers find out that they're here. They come here to the city of Detroit, hire the sheriff and deputy, $50 apiece to capture Thornton and Lucy Blackburn. They captured them, put them in the old jail on Gratiot and Farmer, where the Skillman branch of the Detroit Public Library sits today, behind where Hudson's used to be, or the new Hudson's building, behind where the CompuWare building is, or One Campus Martius is what it's called today. That corner, because you know in Detroit we always had a jail on Gratiot. Until recently, we always had a jail on Gratiot. Well, that was the first jail on Gratiot. They're going to be held there until a boat comes to the Detroit River. They're going to put them on the boat, take them down to Ohio, and then wagon them back to Kentucky. While that's their plan, black people have a plan, and they are meeting at the home of Benjamin Willoughby. Benjamin Willoughby, formerly enslaved, now a black businessman, well respected in Detroit, is a leader, and they're having a meeting at his house. But he ain't the only leader at this meeting. There's two other leaders. I want you to know their names. Caroline French and Tabitha Lightfoot. These two black women ain't serving tea and cookies. They leaders. They're like, hey, they got our friends. What we gonna do? We gotta do something to help our friends. They're not just sitting there. Every time that black people have made progress in this country, black women have been at the forefront of that progress. When the history happened, black women are doing all this stuff. When we tell it, men did it all. We have to go back and look at the history, find out what the women were doing, and what we find, they was doing everything. So these black women say, we gotta do something to help our friends. And they come up with a plan on Friday, June 14th, 1833. Saturday, June 15th comes and goes. Sunday, these are church people. They go to church on Sunday. So they go to church, and after church, they go down to the jail to visit Thornton and Lucy Blackburn. Everybody that came to visit Thornton is turned away. He's not allowed to have any visitors. He's behind bars, in shackles, with guards standing outside the door. And no visitors. They're so afraid of this black man. They don't think the bars are enough. They got him in chains behind the bars, with guards standing out, and they ain't gonna let him have no visitors. They so scared of him. But this black woman, they not afraid of her. She's in jail, but she ain't in shackles. Ain't no guards standing outside her door, and she's allowed to have visitors because they're not afraid of her. Big mistake on their part. Caroline French and Tabitha Lightfoot going to jail cell with Lucy Blackburn, and they prayed with her because they believe that prayer changes things. They brought her some food because they knew she wasn't eating well in that jail because jail food was horrible. Jail food is still horrible to this day. Don't ask me how I know. While they're feeding her and praying with her, Caroline French switches clothes with Lucy Blackburn inside of the jail. When the sheriff ain't paying attention, everybody down there with Thornton. Nobody's paying attention down here. When the sheriff and deputy say, okay, visiting is over, gals leave. Tabitha Lightfoot walks out with Lucy Blackburn wearing Caroline French's clothes. The sheriff can't tell the difference, they all look alike. They put her on a boat, she goes over to Canada, she's free. The next morning, Caroline French says, yoo-hoo, Mr. Sheriff, guess what? I am not Lucy Blackburn. I'm Caroline French. I came here to visit her yesterday, and when you weren't looking, we switched clothes. See, remember? Yeah, that was me. And when you weren't looking, we switched clothes. She walked right by you, and you didn't even know. Our plan was to get her to Canada, so by now she's there, and she's free, and I'm free too. You better let me go. Slave catchers only make money for bringing people back. They've lost a big part of their bounty. They're like, well, you switched. Well, you gonna switch. We're gonna sell you, make up what we lost with her. Caroline French said, I'm from Detroit. Plus, I'm from the east side. That is not gonna happen. When they walk out of the jail, there's 400 people outside with bricks, with sticks, with knives, with tree branches, with poles. The Detroit Free Press said some of them had swords and some of them have guns. Now the sheriff is armed, the deputy is armed, the slave catchers are armed, but it's 400 armed people outside. They can do the math. Okay, if we shoot, then we die. That's what's gonna happen. What we gonna do? They let Caroline French go. That's right, they let her go. You can clap, yeah. They're like, okay, thank you for visiting, go have a good day. But the crowd don't leave. The crowd is also there for Thornton. And what they plan to do is put Thornton in a wagon, whip the horses so that the wagon takes off fast and anybody trying to stop the horses will get trampled by the horses. That's the plan. the crowd breaks the back wheels of the wagon, so that it just drags in the mud. It can't take off fast. They're surrounded, and they're getting angrier and angrier, and Thornton says, hey, I don't want to get killed out here with y'all. Can you let me talk to them? They're not going to move for you. Let me talk to the crowd. Y'all can take me, but I'm not going to let them start shooting, because then I'm going to die. And the deputy thinks this is a good idea to let Thornton talk to this crowd. So Thornton stands up in the wagon and says, did y'all hear me? They ain't hear Thornton either. So the crowd moved in closer. And he said, what? And the crowd moved in closer. The crowd moved in so close that Madison Lightfoot, Tabitha's husband, hands Thornton a gun. When Thornton gets that gun in his hand, it works like this microphone, because he get real loud now. Y'all better let me go before I shoot somebody. And the man who handed him the gun, Madison Lightfoot, Tabitha's husband, said, shoot him, kill him. Madison Lightfoot, who handed him the gun and said, shoot him, kill him, is Reverend Madison Lightfoot. Thornton don't listen to the good reverend. He don't shoot nobody, but he shoots in the air. But once he does that, all melee breaks loose on the sheriff, because he is standing far away from the wagon. So he catches the bricks, the bottles, everything, and he's laid out on the corner of Gratiot and Farmer. Now it's 3 against 400. It's gonna be 2 because the deputy is out too, but different out. The slave catchers are keeping the crowd at bay with their guns, and while they're keeping the crowd at bay, the crowd takes Thornton, put him on a wagon, send him to Canada, reunited his wife, they both are free. You can clap for their freedom. Thornton and Lucy Blackburn moved to Toronto, start the first taxi business in the city of Toronto. They become wealthy, build 5 homes for other people who escaped from slavery, need a place to stay until they can get on their feet. Once you get on your feet, you move out, the next group can move in. Thornton comes back to the city of Detroit, goes back to Louisville, and rescues his mother, Sibby Blackburn, from slavery. The people who freed Thornton and Lucy Blackburn are the founders of Second Baptist Church, the oldest black church in the state of Michigan, stationed on the Underground Railroad, the first school for black people. Faith and freedom go hand in hand for black people at this time. There's not 2 different things. Some people today will tell you about their faith and don't care nothing about your human rights. They're telling you about something that's gonna happen after you die, but right here, they don't care nothing about that. Some people care about what's gonna happen with you here, but they're not attached to faith anymore. But at this time, that's the same thing. Black people who are starting churches are the same people helping people escape from slavery. People who are helping people escape from slavery are trying to get educated or trying to give education to the people who are not educated. Faith and freedom go hand in hand, and education is at the center of all of it. It is all one fight. Let our motto be resistance, is what they are saying. And they're saying it about education. They're saying it about faith. They're saying it about freedom. So we're standing on their shoulders. That's why Detroit is not known for nonviolent civil disobedience, because of Caroline French, Tabitha Lightfoot, Madison Lightfoot, the founders of Second Baptist Church, Thornton and Lucy Blackburn. That's why we're known for getting with it when we have to. That's why Malcolm can say, there'll be no skullduggery, there'll be no flim-flam, there'll be no sellout, either you this or that. That's why he can say that. That's why we should be able to understand when the Millcock Abroad tells us, tell no lies and claim no easy victories. Tell the people the truth about the struggle that you're involved in. That's why Paul Robeson can tell us the battlefront is everywhere. And that's why I can do what I do as the official historian for the city of Detroit. Thank you for listening. Ice out. Take us out. No?
That's it.
Oh, yeah, okay. All right, Brother Wallace. All right. Thank you.
before you all head out, I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. Please keep up with what we are doing at the ace.detroit.gov. Another hand for Mr. Waddles and Baba Jordan, because they were cooking tonight. I'm Lacey Holmes. Keep art in Detroit going, and good night.